This is the meeting of the Capital Planning Committee, September 21st, 2021. Present are Bob Markle, Town Administrator, Doug Boyd, Co-Chair of the Advisory, Dick Patello, Treasurer, Thad Clavette, Resident and Recording Secretary, John Flynn, Selectman, and myself, Lisa Sternberg, Chair of the committee. Now, does everyone have an agenda for tonight?
No, Lisa, I have a quick question. Which one of us are members, which are more ex officio members? Like, are Doug and I kind of ex officio advisory selectmen representatives?
As you have set it up,
yeah,
you are voting members.
So we have a quorum.
I guess.
I think I'm the only one who's not a voting member.
And neither is Bob.
Right.
I'm not a voting member.
Yeah,
right.
so you have four voting.
Would you
members.
like to be, Bob?
No, I haven't voted for a long time as a member of a board committee.
Attendance has been a problem and membership has been a problem, and I've put that on the agenda. Okay, so first up is approval of the minutes from August 3rd. Has everyone seen them? What do you need? That's today. That's okay. This is the August 3rd minute. So you need the agenda. Okay. There are the minutes. I only have 2 copies.
You
can look at it. You've seen it. You'd like to see it, and you have a copy as well.
I'm trying to get my printer to print on legal paper, but it doesn't want to. Figured out why. I can change a lot of stuff on there, but for this one, I just wanted to have.
You sent me, I can print it on tablet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I get press some columns to make it.
Yeah. I wanted to try to get it on one page, just because I highlighted the numbers.
Yeah, the minutes that.
I don't have the minutes now. But I wrote them.
On that case,
So we know they're right.
I don't
you
know.
better not have any objections.
I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Fine. Motion
Everything okay on it?
looks to be.
Okay, motion approved? Yes.
Yes.
I motion.
So moved.
Okay.
All right. So then, got so many papers flying here. Now, as far as I put on here the review of the letter from the building inspector regarding the townhouse elevators. I don't have a copy of that, but it was quite simple. And
Did you forward it to us? I'll look for my mail.
yeah, I think it's in the mail. I think it has been.
I don't think I saw.
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen.
Well, then I guess we can't discuss it.
Well, if you'd like to paraphrase it.
Yeah, I'll paraphrase it.
Well, we can discuss it.
We can
Sure,
discuss it.
it was basically that there were 2 options, and one was an elevator that would accommodate only 1 person at a time. To my mind, that doesn't make any sense. And the other was 2-person, and basically he said that that's as far as he had taken it. What was that?
Okay. Was there anything, so there was nothing in there about our request for an assessment of the mechanicals of the building?
He said, no, I don't believe he said anything about that.
Because that was the request that we made to the selectmen.
And he's looking for a vendor for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that's still in
Again,
process.
same thing. It's, you know how it is out there right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have enough information then to.
That's at a standstill.
So the elevator.
No, it's on the
one
radar.
or a 2-person elevator.
Well,
That was
one
one-
person elevator, I don't think that's even could be ADA compliant.
Of course,
could it?
no way, no, it wouldn't be. So I don't even know
Heck, I
why
mean, if
that
you
was.
could put a wheelchair in it, you could put 2 standing people in it, basically. Sure. So what do you call 1 person? Is he defining a 1-person elevator as a 1 handicapped person elevator?
Unless it's got a weight limit.
Pretty much a 1-person elevator, like a dumbwaiter.
Yeah, it made no sense to me, but this is from memory, and it didn't make sense to me. So anyway, more information, and
Well, I'll keep following up on the mechanical assessment.
If you could, that would be good. This is our big.
Okay, let me just mention in connection with that. The town is applying again to the State Office of Disabilities for a planning grant. In order to be able to get the grant, you need to have a vendor already selected. It doesn't make sense to me, but you have to list a vendor, a consultant who can actually tour the town buildings and recommend steps to make the buildings more accessible or accessible. So,
Do they have a list of approved vendors?
yes.
Okay, well, that helps.
Yeah. I contacted the vendor who did the accessibility study 3 years ago. EL Architecture in East Long Meadow. Asked him for a quote. He finally sent a quote. And so then I listed him and sent it in. So if we get the planning grant, the point is, if we get the planning grant, he will simply update the work that he's already done. I'm sure the focus for any so-called action grants would be an elevator here. That would probably have first priority. So if in fact the planning grant is provided, and we were denied last year because we didn't have a full complement of members of the Commission on Disability. Now we do. Let's get the planning. If we get the planning grant, we can get the work done. I don't think it's going to take a lot of time. And then you become eligible for grants up to $250,000. And so if we're looking at paying for some kind of elevator here without using town money, I think that's probably what we can anticipate as a project for this disabilities commission and so forth. And I think it can be done. We should hear about a planning grant probably in the month of October. And if we're successful this time, I think we can get the planning done and then go in there for so-called action grant to fund an elevator.
So you already got the contractors set up?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't contracted with them.
No,
I just
but
asked
it's-
for a quote and they're set up.
Okay.
Okay, and now the mileage of highway police and fire department vehicles.
Okay, I got highway and police on here. I still don't have the fire department.
I sent you the fire department, right?
When? I didn't see it.
I sent it. We finally got it. Let me just.
Because on Friday, you were still waiting on them.
Correct.
I didn't see anything come through, but it's possible. But it won't take long to punch those numbers in there. And I don't think there was anything pressing real much on the fire department. But in looking at the police, for example, and I think the police needs a lot of scrutiny only because I know they're looking for additional vehicles. And there was a question that I think I heard an answer to of the car that got replaced as to what happened to that car. Because there was no miles reported. I put in a 1 just so it has a figure on this. You see that's car 5 down there. And that car was only averaging 9,200 miles per year. And we replaced it. Is the car still?
That was the chief's car.
Is the car still here?
No, he's showing 5 now. He's showing
What's that?
now. He's showing it as the chief still has his car.
I have the chief's car on there without a number. Car
No.
5 is the
No.
one.
Car 6 is the chief's car.
Car 6 is the
Yeah.
chief's car.
Car 5 is the
Correct.
detective/clerk.
Correct.
Car 5 showed no mileage reported.
See, and that
Here's
was,
what-
that was
here's
the
what
original plan, was that car 5 was going to be replaced.
Yeah.
That was Jeff's plan last year. There was some changing that happened, which would have been 5 and 6 really flip-flop, basically. And the chief made the point that really you couldn't take 5 and roll it into service because it wasn't, used for a better word, tricked out as a pursuit / police car.
Okay,
And it
so,
would be
but is
more work.
5 still here?
I don't believe so.
No,
Okay, and what did we get for it?
The chief's car that what you show is 6 rolled down to 5.
But what happened, physically happened to the car?
You mean trade-in value?
turned it in.
Was it traded in?
It was traded in.
And what did we get for it?
It'd be either 4,000 or 7,000.
Okay,
Here's what happened.
just hold on to that thought for a minute. A 2014 Interceptor, even though it don't have lights, is fully equipped as a police vehicle. Here are 12 used Interceptors with less miles than this on average sale price of over $12,000. And we traded it in for 2.
Oh, no.
4.
In the best condition, they bring about 7.
Yeah.
And less, like the ones here with over 90,000, they're going to get in the range of 4, according to the chief.
Carfax, this one's got 96,000 miles, 9,994. Here's one with 137,000, $8,000.
Those are retails though.
Yeah. But this is the guy selling it on the internet.
That's what I'm saying.
We could have bid it out or auctioned it.
Yeah, we could, but
This is what happened. There was a controversy about this.
Mm-hmm. I
When
understand.
Chief Farnsworth ordered a car last fall, November, I believe.
Right.
It was supposed to be delivered in January.
Right.
Because of production problems, it was delivered in July.
Right.
Okay. That car went to the chief.
Right.
And Chief Farnsworth said it was intended as a chief's car all along by Farnsworth because he did not order the additional equipment, the lights and so forth. We've had this controversy about whether that made sense. I don't think it made any sense for the chief to take the newest car when we've got patrol cars with 80 and 90,000 miles.
Okay. I understand that, and that's over. It's said and done. And
So
it's
then
done.
the former chief's car was rolled down to the detective.
Right.
Okay.
That's
Another
car-
car, a
that's
third
car
car
6
was,
that's
a
out
third
there.
car was authorized. Another car was authorized in May and on the warrant for October 18th,
Is another one coming.
another one. And those
Okay.
2 cars, at least one of those, if the town meeting authorizes the second one, those 2 cars will go in and to replace the patrol cars.
Okay.
And projected delivery is in the February, March time.
Yeah.
At this point.
And so when you have these high mileage, both of those cars are going to be in the range of 110, 120.
then have you had any luck getting the repair information by car?
Not at this point, no.
Have we made an effort or?
We've asked for it, but I mean, we just, it's like pulling teeth to get the miles. I can go over here myself. If
So
somebody-
I think that's what we talked about is
Yeah.
setting you up with.
Yeah,
with-
but
with
nobody
Kathy
else.
or Todd, I guess, does a lot of that.
I know you've been on the road too, so.
And I was
Yeah.
on the road, I was
I
out of
understand.
town.
But, you know, it's just that whether we do the trade-in a couple of $1,000s, you're right, we ought to be talking about that, or that we ought to have a policy in the town. But I really want to know how long these cars last before they're a repair nightmare. So that's
Well,
what
I
I'm
agree
hoping.
with that. And the second point though, I want to make though, is the statement was made a number of times that the old chief decided he wanted to go with Tahoes instead of Interceptors. But looking at the miles, the officers don't want to drive the Tahoe because it's the second one down and it's got the lowest miles. And if you look here, I got a study from the Michigan state of Michigan, who evaluated, it was the only evaluation I could find on the internet. They evaluated every police car that's available. Hands down, for acceleration, for braking. They even took it on a test track up in Michigan. hands down, Interceptor that is a far superior car than the Tahoe. Well, why are we buying them?
Well, I think
And on top of that, the existing lights on the existing will fit
And be
on
transferred.
it.
well,
You can't transfer them to the Tahoes.
Right. But they have a hybrid and an EcoBoost, both available by Ford. That'll give you superior gas mileage.
Mhm.
They take into account that it's going to sit there idling. So instead of idling, it actually shuts the engine off, and it's got a heavy duty electrical system in there. Everything.
I do appreciate what you're saying, but with the testing, the first line of the testing objective is to determine the vehicle's high-speed pursuit and emergency response handling characteristics and performance in comparison to other vehicles.
Right.
That's not my particular focus for buying a cruiser for the town of Hamden. I'm looking at something that is going to be reliable and cost effective. High-speed pursuits aren't really something we do very often.
Yeah, you go high speed.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but all the police vehicles that we buy are classified as high-speed pursuit vehicles.
But what I'm saying,
The Tahoes are high-speed pursuit vehicles.
I understand, but
Okay,
if their criteria is how it handled Groton Racetrack, I'm not sure that's particularly the study we need.
Yeah.
well, it accelerates fast, it brakes better, and it handles better.
And Thad, I wonder about the mileage thing. I wonder if they're like, okay, this is the newest car. Let's run up the miles on the ones we're trading in
I don't know.
because they're going out. They're going out.
That's why I'd like to get you inside that building.
Yeah, right.
When your schedule allows, so
Break
that,
into the police department.
well,
No, only during office hours. They don't, second shifts. Not that.
If you look at the garage up above, his mileage coincides with the new vehicle. He's got a new vehicle, it gets more miles. The older vehicle gets less miles and so on.
Sure.
On both his F-250s and on his dump trucks, he rotates his fleet properly. The police department is avoiding driving that 2019 Tahoe like a plague. The number one has got 9,000 more miles on it, and it's a year older. It makes no sense the way they're driving.
that's why I'd love to know how they're doing it.
Well,
But we
I
just
can tell you this, that whether it's fashion and fad or whatever, police chiefs now are saying we need to go to Tahoe and arguing, as Farnsworth did, that the Tahoe will last 4 years, whereas the old Interceptors are only 3-year cars. That's what we were told by Farnsworth. Probably is saying the same thing. I frankly don't know what to believe because 7 or 8 years ago, they were all talking about the Dodges.
We have an opportunity right now because we have a new chief who has not set in his ways. We have a subject matter expert in fleet management. I think this is a perfect opportunity to get in there and coach them a little bit on, how to get the best value for the town.
Yeah, it's an engagement thing, and I agree with that. I mean, I'm not looking to go tell the police department, this is the pistol you should buy, whatever like that, but something here which more blurs the line between police equipment / something where anybody outside can have expertise in it. This is an opportunity for that to engage.
Absolutely.
But whatever taser they want to get, I'll leave it to them. And they are looking for new ones this year.
That's nice.
I think in the future, as we go through this, we should have the department head come and discuss why decisions were made with the committee.
And well, again, we just don't want him to feel, we don't want, trying to gender neutral, we don't want whatever department head to feel that we are interrogating them in this case or challenging them. We're trying to work together to a better solution. If we can frame it that way, we might make some progress.
We all want to support.
And understand.
Yeah. I'm very thrilled to hear that the highway department knows how to do fleet management.
it looks like they're doing
From the
a
data
great
you
job.
have, it looks good.
Well, it certainly is past time to get a handle on the police vehicles because.
And even what I do have on the police information, it comes out to they're running 130,000 miles a year in total in the department. So that only qualifies a car, it would be 15 months.
You figure 150,000 is a target, is that what you're thinking?
Well, I figured if you trigger it
We're
at
talking
100,000,
Okay. You're running 135,000 a year, 130,000, so
112,
you should replace a car every 10 months then.
10, 12.
Yeah, okay.
But again, it changed back when the powertrain got better. You remember we had our target was
Yeah.
60,000, then all of a sudden they got $100,000 powertrain. So, okay, we'll go to 100.
Yeah, so
Now, the repair information would tell you more like,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna exponentially climb when that warranty goes away.
Yeah.
And that's
I think we should set that into the cover.
Wow.
Arrest me.
I talked to Mark Langoni this morning, and does anyone know if police vehicles could be equipped with some sort of a means, or do they come with them anyway, of engine hours rather than just mileage? Because highway equipment, some of highway equipment.
Police vehicles,
Yeah,
my understanding since 2018, they do come with hour meters.
But my F-150 has it. You know, you just scroll through.
I
maintenance in there.
don't know if they do or not, but in that report, which is 120 some page, and they talked about a lot of stuff, just more, I just picked out, you know,
You can see more idling time.
I picked out speed, because especially the hybrids, because people don't like hybrids as a rule. But the hybrid outperforms everything in the fleet of Chevys,
Mhm.
Dodges, and they accelerate faster because it's a DC engine. It's just gonna go like.
Well, we talked about, for instance, the fire department, they track by hours because they
Right.
sit and idle.
So as far as hours, a guy I worked with works for Jasper Engine. If you're sitting there idling for an hour at low RPMs, it's like putting 100 miles on the vehicle
For an hour.
for an hour.
Really?
If you're at high RPMs, it's actually more. But now, yeah, I was
Driving,
But driving, you're saying that
you'd be
you're
60
putting as
miles.
much time on it, an hour idling, as you would be driving 100 miles an hour for an hour.
That's.
Yeah.
That
I'll
seems very
verify.
odd.
Well, I appreciate that, but
But the point is that idling is tough on an engine.
If you idle it for an hour, it's like add 100 miles to it. In other words, if you knew how many hours
I
things
understand
were
what you're
running,
saying.
you add 100 miles to it.
but
Yeah, but if you drove it 60 miles an hour, you don't.
And the worst thing about it, and he asked a question, because I was talking a little bit about the fire department, and we touched on these, but I don't know exactly what's in these dump trucks and stuff like that, as far as engines. But he asked the question, when they're done with a fire, what do they do? Just drive back to the fire hall? He said the best thing they could do would be to take it out and go like a bat out of hell down the road and blow carbon out of it.
the old I-91 tune-up.
Exactly. Exactly. And he reminded me of the one plant we worked at together, and there used to always be fire engines parked across the street, just a little ways away from O'Hare Airport. And that's exactly what they did. They would take them out on 294 there, and they would just go like a bat out of hell from this toll booth to the next toll booth and blow carbon out. But if you don't do that, it deteriorates the engine. So.
well, the reason I brought it up is because it seems that when the matter of police vehicles being replaced at 100,000 miles, that the justification or part of the puzzle was, well, because we idle so much and it puts a lot more wear and tear
They're
on it.
supposedly from, I think, 2018 or 2016.
That we can get that data.
Should be there.
Okay.
Should be there.
I don't think it makes sense to buy any more administrative vehicles that aren't hybrids. It's a proven technology.
If it's
You get
strictly,
twice the gas mileage.
yeah, if it's strictly an administrative, and I talked in that report too, they were buying like Hondas and Accords.
That's the point I was gonna make.
Stuff like that. They weren't buying Interceptors. If it was,
If these are just court vehicles, we don't need fully tricked out police vehicles.
no, you just need a,
I mean, we can
Just
do it
need
for
a
half
Chevy.
the cost.
yeah, you just.
That's why I thought we were pretty happy with the Taurus, the one back and forth Palmer. You know, it didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Secret Service vehicle.
I want to bring up the topic of the excavator, and I don't know if everyone is aware of it. Thad, did you hear anything about an excavator to be purchased?
I saw the email,
Okay, only this morning.
well, this afternoon, yeah.
My concern about that is that I don't understand why that hadn't been brought to the attention of capital planning. It is a capital expense, $78,000, and because the lifespan is to exceed 5 years, Mark said he guesses or he projects that it would last for 15 to 20 years, that it falls under our mission as capital
I think 2
planning.
meetings ago, one of the select meetings, someone asked Mark that question.
Right,
About renting them.
We haven't met since the thing came up.
Yeah, that's why.
We don't have a procedural enforcement to do that at this point. And for the departments that report to the selectmen, unless the selectmen think of it, and they probably, it's not in the front of their head. The departments are not being instructed or trained to do this at this point.
Which is like part of the reason you're not just walking into the police department. I don't want to just
I
go over there and say, give me your miles.
I've talked to the chief and I've talked to Kathy. We're ready to get you in there when you're ready.
Yeah, it's a bit of the perfect storm. There was a need by highway, and I think Mark shared with you the numbers that he's spending this much on a yearly basis. If you looked at the email, you can see the payback period, at least we would say 4 or 5 years at the most, in terms of what he spends on it.
Yeah.
We have cash to give. Honestly, Dana has been bringing this up for years before that. The town needs a backhoe. The town needs a backhoe.
I'm kind of surprised we've never owned a digger before. We've always had to rent.
And I'm not questioning whether or not it makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems to make sense. My question or concern is, why am I, as chair of capital planning, learning about this last night at a Board of Selectmen's meeting and finding out that it's on the warrant for October 18th?
Because
it was brought up 2 meetings ago, just like.
But because we don't have a budget procedure that has been communicated to department heads that gives them any criteria when they'd have to come to capital planning.
If it had been an annual meeting purchase, easily it would have been through capital planning because we would have more time for the warrant articles, et cetera. It was just the fact that we're coming up to an opportunity, and I'm sure you've heard, with the savings from the police budget, we're paying for every article except debt on the warrant. Every purchase, everything on that thing means no increase to.
So the question going forward here is how do we communicate what the limit is for, or what is the appropriate time to engage capital planning? And so what is the range that the capital planning committee feels they should have jurisdiction? And then how do we get that communicated to the budget requesters?
So I disagree. Earlier this year, 2 forms were sent out. One was a form for a capital request electronically, so you could print any number of copies. And a second form was actually a set of rules to define a capital purchase. They were sent to every board, every committee, and every department. And in fact, Mark did produce, and I can dig it out here, Mark did produce a vehicle replacement schedule. I think this is just a mistake, he didn't have an excavator listed on his set of requests, and it just popped up, and we need to get away from ad hoc decisions on capital purchases.
Understood.
But I think this is an exception, and maybe we should use this example to go back to the departments that have capital requests and say, listen, here is the process. And unless you observe the process and get it on a plan, which this committee would present to the selectmen, the advisory committee, and even show to the town meeting, unless you get it on here, it's not going to get to the warrant.
You're right, but to go back to the process question, the fire department with their pickup truck came to us and explained what they were doing. We never reported to anybody. Nobody ever asked us our opinion, did we? Did they?
Not so much.
So the selectmen came, the fire department was sent to us, but there's nowhere in our process where this committee weighed in.
No, not reported on the warrant, like Bob would have a summary, this has been endorsed by capital planning or something like that at the bottom, right? Or the moderator should, for capital things, ask for advisory, capital planning, just so he would ask the planning board for your opinion of the warrant of a bylaw change.
Yeah.
And
They
that's
were asked for a 5-year capital projection.
Yeah, understand.
Every year, when the department heads come through advisory, we ask them about any anticipated capital expenses, just so that we have an early warning system, just so we have some indication of what's coming. And this has been going on for years. And in the ordinary course, this excavator would clearly fall within that category. On the other hand, you don't want to squash the initiative of a manager if they have an opportunity to obtain something that's necessary at a reasonable price. But I think you have to balance out the process issue with the necessity issue.
Well, in working in the industry I came from, we had a ton of capital every year, and it was split up amongst 50 facilities across the United States. So, everybody had to get their capital wish list in, but invariably, usually the last month of the fiscal year, the capital guy, finance guy who controlled capital would say, "We got extra money," and they would put out a call. "John, what do you need? Bob, what do you need?" And go around to facilities, because, if you don't spend it, you ain't going to get it next year.
Exactly what happens in my thing. We work on the fiscal year in a school, say, "Oh my gosh, I got 10,000 left in my budget."
Right.
My company, "Hey, do you have a trainer that you can sell us quickly? I can use it or lose it."
I listened to that select meeting. I want to say it was 2 meetings ago, maybe it was 3 meetings ago, when Don asked Mark, I think what the conversation exactly was, but they talked about that excavator in the meeting and questioned the rental cost on it. My concern, and I only read John's note this afternoon, okay, my concern is he talks about his guys not really using it, and his rental cost included a driver. So when they rented a lot of that stuff, they were actually renting a contractor that was coming out and running the machine.
Actually, they do it 2 ways. They'll rent a machine by the day with an operator from a local vendor,
right?
But they'll also do they'll do a bunch of projects and rent a machine from Thailand.
Okay.
So they do rentals in both.
The thing to make sure is, Massachusetts passed a law last year, and I know because I went to rent an excavator at Taylor, you can't rent it without a special license.
He actually had a follow-up email showing that, and that his guys are all licensed. Rocket this because it's small enough that
it's under 10,000 pounds.
Yeah.
No, if it's got any hydraulics.
They have hoisters licenses.
Okay.
Everybody has to.
They have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he has to keep this machine under 10,000 pounds. That means that they can legally tow and they can legally operate it. One of the reasons that he got sold on this all of a sudden is a couple other local towns like Munson got one, and he got to go over and check it out. And it's pretty impressive.
And useful.
Yeah, very useful. It's even got some tree trimming.
If he gets it in quick, he can come up and demo it in my yard.
We still have the project. He hasn't finished at the park yet because the water, he's supposed to be putting a trench in there.
Yeah.
Which again, because it's been such a wet summer, typically.
I don't think there's any question about the utility of the vehicle. I mean, these things are incredibly versatile. I think it really comes back to Lisa's issue of process.
Right.
So I think that you're right, just like Bob said, all this stuff, for the coming warrant season, we need to make sure every department is engaged back to our committee, and that we have a formal recommendation on any.
And this committee is established at the will of the selectmen. The selectmen, I would assume, need to decide where we have our jurisdiction, how they want us to exert our opinion.
Well, we need clarity on that because I don't think we have it. And last night you said that, John, you said that the fall meeting, the special town meeting in the fall, is primarily a housekeeping meeting having to do with finances.
Or emergency.
Well, I don't think that the excavator is an emergency. It's awfully nice, but you're asking the public, the voters, to approve of $78,000 for both the excavator and the trailer.
Mhm.
I don't think the public really has, I don't believe at all that they've been educated on how versatile and useful this is.
Mhm.
We didn't know about it. And so does it need to be on this warrant, or should it be on the warrant for the annual town meeting in the spring? Because another discussion last night was we might get 100 people at the special town meeting.
Mhm.
Is that sufficient, to approve of this kind of a capital expense?
The characterization that the fall meeting is housekeeping is mostly true. However, the advisory committee convinces people in the spring to hold off on postponable purchases because in the spring, we have no idea what our financial situation is. We don't know what the tax rate is going to be. We don't know what the new growth is. So oftentimes things like another cruiser or whatever, if we're worried that the times are going to be tight, gets postponed to the fall until we have a better picture. Right now, we've got a pretty good idea. We could probably project the tax rate within 0.5%. So housekeeping plus, again, it's deferrable things. And I think that's where this one comes in. But
and it costs 70-some thousand.
Around 78.
yeah.
And this here said that since 16, we spent 78. And it's
I don't think anybody's talking about the justification for it. I think the
Yeah.
process, and Lisa's 100% right. What's the process going forward, and how do we make sure we engage it before?
And by the way, pushing it off to the spring town meeting, unless you do something extraordinary, means that you're adding it to the next year's tax rate when again, we don't know what our situation is.
And you don't get it till July because you can't technically spend it until July either.
Right, but a lot of times the expenditures at the fall meeting are based on that information we couldn't have in the spring. Knowing we got very lucky on our termination costs on the dispatch. We didn't have much for unemployment claims. We didn't have lawsuits. We did very well on that. I think, yeah, much better than our worst case projections were. So that helps us a little bit. So the local revenues were better than expected. Some of the things that we were able to spend on with COVID money that normally would have come out of normal budgets, it all kind of helped our cash flow situation. So we can have a very favorable tax rate and still check a couple of these things off. So I'd hate to push it off.
And then going forward, if you heard me talk at the meeting last night, because Dick is looking proactively at our debt situation right now, plus potential and reduction for high school payments in the future as well, our debt load going forward is going to be in a very good position, if you will. We talked before it was rising up into the 10%. It's going to be dropping down to the 5% of the budget or lower. So when the projects we have before our committee, i.e. senior center expansion, fire station, those are going to be very critical for what we're doing. And you heard me talk, I think, a little about the senior center last night. And I think that's something that some active engagement going forward on that.
By the way,
before we move on to the next topic, maybe we should have a discussion by the Board of Selectmen to clarify and define just what the role of the capital planning committee is and what the process is. I think it's important to have a 5-year plan, not for all capital needs, and a 20-year plan for vehicles, not just because you're projecting your needs, but also if you look at the chart that we were working with, at the bottom line, it gives you a number, and you can spread out your vehicle purchases ideally so that at the bottom line, the investment each year for capital expenditure or for expenditures for vehicles is relatively even rather than see it jump up one year and down the next year. I think that's the advantage of having a 5-year capital plan for most capital and a longer term capital plan for vehicles, that you can have a rough judgment of how much it will cost every year and plan for it, and set aside funds for it.
Would it be just as easy at our next meeting to have the fire chief and the police chief and Mark come?
Well, one other thing I was gonna mention,
I think it's
what would you
so-
think about,
I think-
I mean, there are other towns that do this. What would you think about reaching out? I'm happy to do it. Reach out to Wilbraham, East Meadow, and ask for a member of their committee to come to us and explain how they do it over there. And just get a sense of,
That's an interesting idea.
yeah. They've had theirs. I remember they came to talk to us back when we first started back in 05, 06. You know, and I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. Hey, what's the best way you've done it? How would you do it different nowadays? Where do you see the pitfalls?
By the way, interesting note, today we processed the final payment on Green Meadow School renovation.
There was supposed to be a ribbon cutting. What happened?
Yeah, we need to have some,
I gotta see if they can send me the mortgage so we can burn it.
Yeah, but Bob was gonna get a cake that CARES would pay for.
that's gotta be on the front
We
page of the
met
Times
with
and
Big
the
Brother
Reminder.
Wilbraham last week on their fiber optic program, so maybe we could be in touch with them.
Probably the next-
do some learning on
Next agenda item will be the next refurb committee flight.
Second floor.
Just in brief, and then we need to move on, but what's this going to look like when it's presented at the town meeting on the excavator? Like, who will present it and who will explain it to the people?
I think that's a good question for Doug.
I'm assuming it'll come out of the board or out of Mark.
Right.
So the selectmen will make the motion, and if there's anybody with detailed questions, I'll probably call on Mark.
Well, Mark would probably have one driven there and leave it in front of Burgess. Tore it on the way.
I missed that.
No,
Given
Yeah,
all the
he'll have
discussion
it dropped
around
off
this
the front.
issue,
and people can look it
Have
over
one
when they
sit there
get
so
there.
to see what they're buying.
Okay.
one member of the board said to me today, take it off. So that might be possible.
Well, is there anybody who's upset with anything other than process?
I want to take it off.
It's news to us, I guess.
Well, it just came out, I just said this afternoon, after I was explaining, we have a little controversy going on here about this. That's what the comment was.
Are you the controversy, Lisa?
I don't think I'm the only controversy.
Is there anybody who's arguing anything other than process?
It's not just that capital planning has not been involved in this loop, but my concern, I think, is from the perspective of the voters. The first time they're going to hear about this is on October 18th.
Unless they go to the advisory hearing, which every good citizen should do.
Well,
I'd be
all 20
facetious.
people, and then
Or if they
That's my
listen, or if
concern.
they listen to.
Well, I would say the department head came to our board with a request for something he felt was necessary for the department, easily justifiable in terms of expense, would have no impact to the town because we pay for it free cash. And at that point, the board was unanimous in supporting that application. I haven't heard of any change of, attitude at this point. But when Mark spoke before the board, it was a great idea, good idea. You're going to save money over the long haul. And this is a good use of basically the largesse we have right now because of good fiscal.
To be honest, when I'm thinking of a good investment for the town, I'd rather you ditch the cruiser than ditch the excavator.
Yeah.
It's a less justified expense at this point.
Those excavators are just gonna get nothing but more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, if you have to choose, I would agree with you, but we're going to have 2 patrol cars. Very high mileage by the time
Maybe.
replacement cars arrive.
And with the delay in ship thing, the problem is you can say, well, we'll push it off. It could be 12 months before you get a
You
cruiser.
just
if you
can't
wait
what I
till-
want to discuss.
If you wait till the spring.
Because you don't know when the next one's coming.
I wish we'll have an excavator to pull it out of the ditch though.
Even if it's approved, it don't mean that.
A hybrid excavator, great idea.
Oh, God.
okay,
I don't think they
moving
have
on, I guess.
So,
But to your point, Lisa, unfortunately, there's a lot of times when things come up, both at the special and the annual town meeting, where people either are not aware of it because they haven't paid attention or they're simply not interested in it. The information's out there for anybody who's interested. You've been to enough of the advisory public hearings, you know what the attendance is.
Mhm.
I would say unless someone has a question about the accuracy of Mark's justification as far as his expenses, which, you know, you see the expenses over time. You understand they were renting a person running this thing. I would say that we ought to take a vote and approve the excavator here. So when the warrant comes.
Do you think his numbers are accurate, Dick?
With the reason, I haven't dug into every receipt or anything like that, but no, I think he makes a good case for the productivity of the machine. Absolutely.
So I would say we should just vote to okay it if it's asked.
And actually going forward, therefore, from the advisory standpoint, the operating expense of the department would either come down or free up money for other tasks, because he wouldn't have to be spending $6,000 on rental fees inside his operating budget. From your standpoint going forward, not that he'll give it back, but the increase might be less because now he's got money to put towards something else.
Yeah, I mean, what it does is it increases the in-house capability and hopefully will reduce the outflow to vendors.
Right. I mean, downside, yeah, it's one more vehicle in the fleet based on your sheet there. Pretty soon, you know, second.
And it really comes down to the utilization of the vehicle. As long as this piece of equipment is used correctly, it will more than pay for it.
Well, I've seen him using them. I thought it was ours. I mean, you know, they all look the same. They're all yellow. They're all yellow. I didn't see it say, you know, Taylor Rental on the back or Town of Hamden on the back.
On another note, they did start the highway building project this week as well.
I was going to ask, I was going to bring that up. I was going to ask where that stood.
You mean like actually broke ground and are working on
On Thursday, I believe.
Really?
So we're burning the mortgage and we're breaking ground in the same week?
And buying an excavator. I
Wow.
guess.
They're starting to make a bunch of police cars.
Well, there you go.
Wow. So are you looking for a motion from this committee, or are we just gonna?
Well, by the time you have the next meeting, your warrant, you ain't gonna have time if we say it's gotta be approved.
And let me put it this way. So Lisa has met with Mark and he's explained the numbers.
By telephone, yeah.
Right, okay.
Mhm.
Mark, I forwarded the email from Mark as well that he gave to the board with justification. I heartily apologize to our committee that this was such a rush thing. Mea culpa, because we were also pushing our meetings back, waiting for more data on police things as well. We weren't meeting as frequently. In the future, we have to work harder at getting departments engaged with us prior to any town meeting.
With the forms that we have distributed, maybe they need a reminder.
Exactly.
You know, you want this redirect. Yeah.
I will support this with the proviso that this should occur in the ordinary course, not being brought up.
Yep, I agree with
At
that.
our last minute.
I mean, I don't question the justification for it. I question the process, and I got that, but.
Just next agenda item is replacement.
Are you going to take a vote?
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll make a motion to support the application for purchase of an excavator at the special town meeting.
I said,
All in favor? Aye.
I am disenfranchised, so I'm not.
So are you.
So am I, but it was unanimous.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Replacement of the two committee members. Heather never did even come to one meeting. Heather Turcotte.
So that's consistency. Okay.
That is consistent.
Was she an advisory representative or was it originally that there were going to be two advisory members, or was she an at-large member? Do you recall?
My recollection is she was advisory.
My recollection is that there was to be one person from advisory. It's in the mission statement or the description of capital plan.
Well, many of us were actually appointed before the mission statement was actually written, so maybe we right-sized the advisory's representation.
It seems. And then Donna Hatch, and she resigned.
Yeah.
But it is clearly a problem because we didn't even know if we would have quorum tonight. And so, Maura's absent, Pam Rogers is absent. So we have a problem. So what do we do?
Well, we keep adding. I thought Donna was resigning because she wanted to be on the fire station committee. When that didn't happen, you don't think she's interested in actually staying in this committee?
I don't think she liked it here.
No.
She didn't. She wanted. You're right. She wanted to be on this other subcommittee looking at the fire station.
I think the thought was that we were going to be doing more on the fire
Right, then we talked about a new committee
Yeah.
for that, and so
Right.
she was gonna jump that, and then Don said, nope, no committee, so.
Well, you got a spot on the webpage, put up a list, or ask for somebody to help you,
Or two.
like you do on the other boards. But going back to the vehicles, one thing.
Yeah.
If we approve that excavator, the other thing is on there is the cruiser. Is the cruiser need to be approved by us too?
Well, that goes back, I think, to Lisa's point before. We talked about a cap, a number cap, what, we're not looking at every mower, we're not looking at the wood chipper. What's the
50,000.
number? It was
50,000.
Yeah,
And over 5-year projected lifespan.
either or
So
both.
so that can go without our approval.
Right, 'cause
Yes.
what you're saying.
Mhm.
And I think that's a standard now. Most towns consider police cruisers to be a regular budget item as opposed to.
Also, you know,
The only thing I would like to say about that, I think there needs to be, and we'll get some more data, I think there needs to be an honest, true evaluation, whether they should be getting the Tahoe or the Interceptor,
Sure.
especially when you look at that report about the 2 hybrid versions that they have out there. Because that was a big thing, was, well, we can't have a hybrid because, you know, you got to idle all the time. Those 2 are specifically designed for idling.
the F-250 for the highway department and the cruiser are replacement vehicles. And while, you know, we can decide whether they meet our threshold or not, I think the excavator is more important because it's a capital.
That's a capital item.
It's a capital item that's expanding our fleet.
Okay,
So I think that's very important to us, higher priority.
I'm fine with that.
So will a sort of a announcement be put on the town website looking
Wrote a
for?
note, we'll put up
Okay.
something on the
I
website.
did hear from Maura. She said that she was going to try to attend, and I'm not sure what's up with.
I think it's difficult for Pam. She's coming from
Yeah.
Northampton or up there, right?
Yeah, Kathleen.
Up
But
there now.
as far as the fire station tour, I know that John is maybe the only person here who went to East Long Meadow. And let's see, you and I were in Munson. You were at all 3.
I was at Wilbraham also.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, and I was at the 2 out of the 3. One of my concerns was that though we did, as capital planning, make the proposal that there be a fire station building committee as there was for a police station. I don't know how it was presented to the board, but it wasn't that we didn't want to have anything to do with it. We just felt that it was beyond the scope of what this committee can do, and that it was more suitable for there to be a building committee, which was rejected by the board of selectmen. They said we will do it ourselves. My concern is that it wasn't, maybe it would only be a courtesy, John, but I would have thought that someone, maybe just myself, but would have been included in the tours without my asking.
Well,
Yeah, I
just-
saw, if I could just,
Go ahead.
okay, so as you know, Don did not want to engage a separate committee. But I think, if I can speak to his thinking, he was still on the thing, we need to define the mission first, before we get into how many 2x4s and how many whatever, before we even talk about a building committee. And then once a building committee, now you know how much we're financing, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's the engagement right now. What is going to be the future mission? As you said, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
And some of the conversation that Don has had on the select meetings, like I said, I didn't hear Mondays, and I missed one from 3 weeks ago or whatever, but he's asking Mark some specific questions, you know, about, do you need this and do you need
Mark or
that?
Ed?
Ed, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, that was my question, because I've been trying to stay away from the selectmen's meeting anytime possible. It makes my life easier. I'm sorry.
Pay-per-view, come on.
That was my question. One of the reasons that we turned this back to the selectmen is that there was no way to define the building needs without defining mission.
Right.
2 things specifically: are we going to be adding shifts, And are we going to be in the ambulance business? And so that was my question. I've been hearing about you touring up the selectmen touring other stations, but I was wondering if they been spending time considering that those things have to be answered before anything else is answered.
Well, I think that was part of the tour, seeing how these other 3 communities that are, if you will, sister communities to us of different sizes, how they accommodate the blended mission, if you will, EMS plus fire.
Okay, this isn't just, oh, that's a cool building, we should have that kind of corridor. Right?
No.
Okay.
Nobody had a pole anymore either.
Yeah.
I think Munson's talking about it if they get the new one.
Well, and the one thing, and I know I sent an email to the selectmen about the ambulance, that, Wilbraham's looking to buy one, so.
Well, it's funny, actually, we talked to, which town was it? They said they were pretty close. We scooped that ambulance underneath their nose. They were going to buy that ambulance.
Oh, we can offer it up, I guess. But, hey, you want it?
So,
because
they felt the same thing. Good bones, good equipment. It was.
Once you define the mission, then we can ask the chief to define what are the required vehicles to execute that mission.
Right.
And then the building's easy.
Exactly. That's just square footage.
Well, it seems to me we've been asking the fire chief that, and
Well, he's a political creature. He has to be. He's got a couple of constituencies he serves, as do any of these department heads. And the fire department has a legion of fans, and they influence voters. They influence opinion. I'm really, I'd be interested to see when the selectmen actually say this is going to be our mission going forward in the foreseeable future. That's going to be a brave thing for them to do.
And I think
you're exactly right.
And I think the grand debate is, are we going to provide our own EMS services or not? And
I'm a numbers guy. It's a real easy one for me.
Me too.
Moreover,
I just saw where our decennial census number dropped below 5,000.
Right.
That's right.
So we're shrinking.
4,966.
Get rid of our weights and measure guy too, all those things.
We're still trying to get a fence viewer, Dick, please.
And I think our sister communities, East Long Meadow, Munson, and Wilbraham, are going up.
They're there.
Yep, and have gone up in the past 10 years. And that's why that needs to factor into the mission of our fire service.
So, well, I hope this, I wish the selectmen well with that, but
we have another mission issue coming. Having had 2 conversations with the police chief recently with the police reform legislation, the position of those who are on the force now as reserve or auxiliaries, very precarious. And
but that is, I don't think we can call training a capital.
No. I'm just saying 2 alternatives are going to be presented. Do we go ahead and bridge the limited number of reserve officers who are eligible, or do we hire on permanent people? Because it's going to be difficult. Well, I'm just telling you, this is what they're going to bring up.
It's a numbers game. Yeah, they're going to have to show me what the training costs on the part-timers are going to exceed adding all those full-time union guys.
But I think the real issue is, can you retain reserve officers, given the standard contract that the full-time people have preference whenever there's extra work?
Well, you're in contract negotiation time.
I know.
It's a numbers issue.
It is. But I'm just saying,
numbers issue, and
this is just an aside. But I think that issue is coming our way as well.
And it's I hate to say it, it's the defund police movement.
Well, there's a retraining thing, and so the training is going to be more expensive. But if we go to all full-time professional officers, our pension cost goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Because we're talking right now, we're at 35% that we're paying Hampton County retirement on the full-timers. The part-timers we're paying 7%.
And
cops are expensive.
Possibly more medical as well, because
their benefits, yeah.
Maybe a related concern that Brian Harris at Munson, fire chief, said that if you train for a paramedic and he has a situation, the paramedic could potentially just say, well, you know what, I got a better job offer elsewhere. I can get paid more. And that's a concern. So if we were to go, you know, this is premature, but if we went that route and went with ALS or whatever, we can't pay what these other towns are paying. And then what?
In Connecticut has monopolies on their medicals. You can't bring an outside ambulance in unless the monopoly. In Northeastern Connecticut, it's community, or it was. They are a semi-government organization that involves a lot of different fire departments. They just went out of business because all their EMTs walked off the job and there's no service available in Northeastern Connecticut.
Wow.
I was in a community where the fire service ran the ambulance system. We could not keep paramedics.
Yeah.
As soon as someone was trained up, they got offers.
Yeah.
That's a problem, but is
there a solution?
does that have anything to do with capital?
Well, it had to do with the fire department mission statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. I'm sorry. You're right. We have drifted.
Well,
I have rehearsal, I'm just saying.
as right now, the fire department, it's all being handled by Action Ambulance, right?
At a third of what it costs to run our own.
Right.
So the question really is
Everything I'm hearing about Action is positive, is that fair to say?
but
Well, we'll have a recap at the end of this month.
but they're doing everything on their own, but the fire department still responds with their people.
Yeah,
And that's,
we're paying a lot of overtime for that.
yeah, and two people showing up for one person's work, but, so that's really the
Oh, that's
question.
after the
If we
cruiser shows up.
lose people,
The ladder goes out
Well,
over
that's a
here.
good issue. Do you need 3-tier response when you have good ambulance service?
exactly.
Prior.
Let's see what the numbers come back. I'd like to see how the
Okay.
response is. We did hear from Wilbraham. We did hear from Wilbraham and East Long Meadow that Action spends a lot of time responding out of town. Their bottom line should be very good. I'd like to see what it does back towards the 330,000
Well,
paying.
but John, I appreciate that. And, you know, and I expect the selectmen will do awesome. But even with a zero rebate, my numbers suggest that they're costing us a third of what it would be to have our own.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So,
Also, by the way, this is the 15th month. And
Okay.
under the contract that we have with Action, they're going to report.
I just said that. End of this month.
Okay.
So now,
In a different way.
Yeah, true, that's
so what
You
that
know,
means is that we're now entering the time where we can look at whether or not we might be getting credit.
there might be a reimbursement,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully. Bob's gonna get all those numbers and he's gonna look at the fact, you know, did we
Anything
get
else
our
on your agenda,
projection?
Lisa?
Yeah, my agenda is what about next meeting?
Oh, okay.
Just before we get to the next meeting, can we just have a quick update on the highway department? I mean, you said they broke ground, but I mean, are we looking at actually getting that constructed before the snow flies?
No, they're anticipating the equipment, the delivery
Yeah.
sometime or first quarter next year, and then up and constructed before the second quarter. So
They might pour concrete this fall.
Do we have the costs locked in yet?
I think at this point, since they got the paperwork from Bob
Mhm.
locking in, they were able to place the orders and lock in their costs. Well, obviously, with no thought about the contingency at this point, so
We don't have an idea on how much excess appropriation there was yet.
no, I don't know.
Okay.
There's not going to be that much because there were some items that were taken out.
And you could give us $100 grand back.
Some items were taken out and they were then added back.
I understand that you had ads, but you were a
Right, but
couple
we don't
hundred.
know about any contingencies.
No, we don't.
We were a couple hundred under, so I expect you to give us back $100 grand.
So then what would we be discussing for next meeting? Will we have more
That's gonna have some,
information?
hopefully some maintenance numbers for us.
Just to get in there.
So maintenance vehicles.
When are you thinking on having it?
Let's see, town meeting's on the 18th. Would you mind the 19th or 26th, actually?
26th
October,
October.
I'm out of town.
Again?
Yeah,
What the heck?
going on a cruise.
Really? Okay, the next meeting is on a cruise with Dad.
Excellent. I'm all for it.
Could have had to cancel Martha's Vineyard.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said.
I did too. For the
So.
next week and the one after that, so.
Well, I mean, not that the 18th is, oh no, the 19th then, or no? Is that too soon?
Or do we
No,
push it out to November 2nd?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's election day. Is there anything?
No, we're not voting.
No
here,
vote, no
not in this
election in
town.
Hamden, so.
So
that
that's
could
a
be
date
done on the
everybody
2nd.
can remember.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no state election this year, so it's.
What's that date?
November
It's
2nd?
Tuesday,
November
November 2nd.
Well, I may not be able to make that, but I don't vote here, so.
But you're key.
Huh?
You're key.
Well, it's my son's birthday, so if he's
Okay.
Oh,
back
bring him
on the
along.
East Coast, we're gonna do something. And
Oh.
if he's out in
So,
California, we won't.
so 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We can,
You don't think he wants to come to the meeting, Bob?
Well, he might, yeah.
well, you can push it if we, depending on what we have available for agendas. I mean, this isn't etched in stone.
Right.
Right.
exactly.
If you need us before this, or if there's nothing
I
good
think we
to
just
talk
have to
about,
wait and see if
we
get
should
some-
be in, probably have a good idea of tax rate by then.
We better, town meeting stuff.
Well, there's always some fudging.
Oh, yeah. I know the assessors. Well, on the other hand.
Yeah, we gotta
We
find
found this
a
drawer.
one-armed assessor, right?
Yeah. Henry Pauschal had that extra drawer with some cash down here.
So I'm just tagging this. Okay.
Cool.
There.
Come on, I got a jury run.
Yeah.
Yes, John.
You're only.
Reviews I've heard,
I'm
you-
the
10.
On the foreman.
You are, oh, yeah,
From-
okay,
from the
10 is the big one.
Yeah, from the reviews
Yes,
I've heard,
10 and 3.
from the reviews I've heard, you don't want to miss any rehearsals.
The foreman in the jury?
Oh, ouch, ouch.
Look, you know how long it takes to put my lines in my hand? Really.
My wife and I